after the abomination that is called The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'm inside the movie theater with crossed fingers, hoping that they would finally handle my beloved web-slinger right. And now that I've watched it, I'm kind of relieved to say I'm not disappointed. So Spider-Man Homecoming is a third iteration of Spider-Man for the big screen, and it's the 5th Spider-Man movie ever made. They have killed Uncle Ben twice already. Twice. And that's too much already. But this time, this is the first Spider-Man film to be under the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that also means that this is the debut of Tom Holland in a solo film as the titular character, Spider-Man / Peter Parker. So the movie sets out after the events of Captain America Civil War, where, as you may know, Tony Stark took Peter Parker in a so-called Stark internship where he actually beats up superheroes, and that's pretty much it. But it's more likely a sparring session, so that's kind of good, I guess.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude!
And after everything that happened, there's not much to do. Peter Parker was told that he would be given a phone call whenever the Avengers needs him once again. But he never got the phone call, so he's back to his pretty much daily routine of saving kittens and eating your green vegetables, everything he does like before he was even Spider-Man. But of course, he has become Spider-Man now. He has an awesome suit. He has stolen Captain America's shield. And he knows to himself that he is worthy enough to become an Avenger, and so he must prove to Tony Stark that he is now a full-fledged Avenger by doing some actual shit, which he isn't allowed to do for some reason. So when a villain in a winged mechanical suit appeared, now it's up to Peter Parker and his best friend Ted, apparently, to stop this menace once and for all, and to prove to himself that he is now a full-fledged Avenger. And that, my friends, is how you make a proper origin movie without having to kill Uncle Ben again. And actually, this is one of the things that this movie has gotten right. Making an origin movie without being an actual origin movie. That's, I can't believe I used that sentence, but that is how this movie is. Of course, by this time, we have already gotten tired of radioactive spiders biting Peter Parker, Uncle Ben getting shot and killed. You know, all those stuff, all of those are already out of the window, because this movie knows pretty well that we are tired of all those stuff and we just want to see some Spider-Man action. And we get some Spider-Man action while still giving justice in this movie being an origin movie. In here, Peter Parker is already Spider-Man, but he is not yet the full-fledged Spider-Man that he is. He is still a high schooler, a 15-year-old boy who is still learning what comes with great power. You know what I mean. He's still this kid who just wanted to prove to his mentor Tony Stark that he can do things that the Avengers can do. Well, while he still has Spanish class going on. Actually, this is a cute thing about this movie. This is half a high school movie and half a superhero movie. This isn't like the usual MCU movies where the stakes are pretty high, like end of the world dilemma level high, if you know what I mean. This is a story about an ordinary young kid with extraordinary capabilities that just wanted to make a change while doing his everyday life as a high schooler, as a child, as an innocent young spirit full of life. He still has to deal with high school stuff, with his quiz bee, with his Spanish class. He even has a homecoming dance that he has to worry about. And on the side, he sneaks away out his house and does his Spider-Man things. And this movie, being half a high school movie and a superhero movie, actually is a refreshing take on what a Spider-Man movie is. And given the fact that this is a high school / superhero movie, well, the tone of this movie is quite lighthearted. there is not much stakes going on. It's just Spider-Man fighting thugs in his neighborhood because he's not allowed to go too far because he's just a kid. And the tone of the movie actually complements how Tom Holland portrays this Spider-Man. This Spider-Man is an innocent, light-spirited, young-hearted kid. That is what makes Spider-Man very much endearing among all those superheroes out there. Spider-Man is just so pure and innocent that you relate to him and you care about him because he's just a kid. Even the intro of the movie starts with the original theme of Spider-Man, the one with Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
Spider-Pig does whatever a Spider-Pig does.
It actually is a big homage to Spider-Man himself being back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Back home. Homecoming. Which is why a festive vibe is quite welcoming since Sam Raimi's vibes on his first movie was quite different, and that's quite the same path that The Amazing Spider-Man took. It's quite ballsy for a movie to do that because some fans might actually hate the fact that the movie deviated from the usual formula. But the very fact that this movie had its own formula made it a movie on its own and actually makes it better in some aspects than the first two iterations. Don't get the mistake that this movie is so lighthearted that it is already on borderline inconsequential. Because that brings us to the character of Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. And man, does he nail Vulture so well. Of course, we all know that MCU is not a home for very strong villains, very memorable villains. We have Whiplash, Malekith, Mandarin, all those characters, they're meh, they're blah. It's always the protagonists that shine on MCU movies. However, with Michael Keaton's take on the Vulture, it actually makes him one of the better villains that the MCU has to offer. When Michael Keaton is on frame, and even if he's not doing anything, he is freaking menacing. And imagine this. This is the Vulture from the comics. And in the movie, this is what he is. That Vulture. That thing is that thing played by this legend. Imagine that. Michael Keaton is just perfect for this role. He turns the light-hearted vibe upside down when he is on frame. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is actually afraid of this guy. Imagine that. And also, a big plus in Vulture's character is that Vulture is something that we can relate upon, we can sympathize upon. And so we understand his motivations more than other villains out there who just wanted world domination or end of the world things. And so we know where this character is coming from. And with that kind of character, that is a big plus in the movie. And now with the supporting characters, Hot May. Of course, Hot May is still Hot May. I mean, I don't understand why does she have to be so hot. I mean, why is she so hot? Anyway, Aunt May did a very good job in portraying her own version of Aunt May to a 15-year-old Peter Parker. It's just heartwarming to see their relationship. Ned is also a welcome addition. Ned is actually Peter Parker's best friend, and he actually does things. When I first saw Ned in the trailer, I thought he was gonna be some sort of just an annoying presence in the movie, but surprisingly, Ned is a funny character. He actually does stuff, and that makes Ned an essential character in this movie, and he works. And there are other changes in some minor characters that may seem different from the comics and from the other movies, and I think that fans might hate it in some way. But to me, I find it a welcome change. They have made it work, and they have stuck with it, and they have executed it well, and I have nothing else negative to say about it. Also, Tony Stark's involvement in the story isn't too excessive that it overshadows Spider-Man. Actually, it's just done in very adequate doses just to push the story forward. It's still actually about Spider-Man, his own adventures, and Tony Stark is just there for some key points in the plot, but he's not there all throughout. So you might get quite misled by the trailers, since the trailers kept on showing Spider-Man and Iron Man side by side doing stuff. It's not actually that often. The scenes aren't that many, and the presence of Tony Stark in that movie isn't disrupting or doesn't affect the story in a negative way. And lastly, there's this one thing I want to address. However, I cannot give enough details without spoiling it. I cannot exactly tell what it is, but let's just say that that moment is just so intense that it gave the movie its oomph factor. It just dang shook me, and it just redeemed the whole quality of the movie. It just made it so better, and it justified a lot of things that I have nitpicked earlier in the movie, and that just dang, it pays off. Holy crap, that scene was intense though. So in conclusion, presentation-wise, I'm going to give Spider-Man Homecoming a 3 out of 3. Of course, that is what is expected from an MCU movie. Of course, it's gonna have good effects. It's gonna have good cinematography. The style, the lighthearted theme surprisingly fits very well with the Spider-Man thing, which I honestly don't expect to fit, because you can put this side by side on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and they seem so different from each other, and to me they both work perfectly well. Well, it just depends on your taste. If you want an epic take on Spider-Man or you want a lighthearted take on Spider-Man, it depends on your preference, but to me they're both equally good. One nitpick though, the score. Danny Elfman's score on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is just so iconic and it's so epic to listen to. You know, a score is so good when you hear that score and you know instantly what movie it is. The score itself becomes a vital part of the movie, and that is not the case here. The score is just like out there. It's just meh. For the content, the substance, and the style, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 3. The execution is very polished, it's well acted, and of course props to making a unique origin story without going through the familiar track that we have already been through. However, the thing that I was looking for in this movie that I have found in the previous movies was the personal motivation for Peter Parker to be this character, this superhero, this Spider-Man. It doesn't quite explore his personal motivations, his emotions, his passion, his subconscious that drives him to be this character, as compared to the previous films that has explored all those. For the execution, it is well directed, it is well acted. Tom Holland is perfect for the 15-year-old Spider-Man. You can feel a superhero being so young and vulnerable at the same time. That is very not common with different superheroes. Tom Holland's portrayal of Spider-Man is very young, very raw, and it's very vulnerable that you actually care for this character. Because even Spider-Man himself is intimidated with his villains like Vulture himself, which is very menacing. And yes, of course, Michael Keaton is perfect for this character. I cannot emphasize this enough. And finally, for the lasting appeal, of course, Spider-Man Homecoming is never a dull moment. It is very fun to watch, and I would definitely recommend it to watch it with my friends. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 3. And so, the final verdict for Spider-Man Homecoming is an A-. It's definitely better than Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Of course, it's better than Spider-Man 3. However, I quite prefer Spider-Man 1 and 2 because it kind of holds a special place in my heart because it's my childhood movie. It's just so wonderful to see the very first time. But don't be mistaken, this movie is very much close to this too. This is actually one of the most accurate representations of how a Spider-Man movie would be translated on the big screen from the very pages of the comics. They have paid homages very, very much and made it very, very relevant in order to please fans of the comics and casual moviegoers alike. So, what is your favorite Spider-Man movie? Comment below and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, look out for my reviews for Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes in preparation for next week, because next week will be the release of War for the Planet of the Apes. And this has been Genesis X, always reminding you, stay awesome, guys.